Okay, so let's get started, I guess.
Was that meant to be a British accent?
No, that was just like some weird. I don't know. It sounded like Australian. It sounded like some Australian, like butchered. I don't know what. Like it just happens. Sometimes it just comes out.
The Camellias Bloom podcast launched last June and it has already been a year, mashallah. Last year, I decided to start this community, and with that came a podcast where I shared our stories of how Allah placed in our hearts the seed of Islam, and it grew into our stories of how we converted and became Muslim. This year, I wanted to focus more on, now that the seed has been planted and we begin to grow as Muslims on our journey, how has our blossoming into the deen been like so far? That brings us to this year's theme, identity. We will be discovering everything around the topic of identity, from how has our identity changed since we converted to how we coexist with our ethnic identity as a Muslim. I will sit down with a panel of sisters and we will explore identity and surrounding topics such as marriage, racism, culture, and we will even touch upon how identity can shape and affect the way we practice Islam. It's going to be a very interesting and intricate season to see how we all unfold on this journey to Allah and who we really are after blossoming into the deen. Grab your cup of halal goodness and join us for this season 2 on the Camellias Bloom podcast with your host, Khadija.
Last week, we talked about who we were, before Islam and who we are or became after we converted. So I wanted to start off this episode with, did any of you guys find or still find it difficult, balancing who you were before you were Muslim and who you are now as a Muslim? Like, for example, trying to be one way to Muslims and another way around non-Muslims.
I think that's really an excellent question that you posed because I don't know. I feel like personally, I do kind of behave differently between like my non-Muslim family and around Muslim people because I don't know if the rest of you guys feel this way, but I feel kind of like as a revert to Islam, like we're always proving that we're Muslim enough and like that we mean it when we've decided to become Muslim.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I don't know. I feel kind of like we have to go the extra mile, like, dress more appropriately, like behave more appropriately, be more modest, like just really exemplify it because I kind of feel like everybody's always questioning whether or not our intentions are pure when we revert to Islam. So we kind of have to overperform and overcompensate,
right.
Whereas with my own family of origin, I feel like I can be a little bit more relaxed and a little bit more like how I was before I was Muslim. But I feel like if I were to go around the Muslim community and be like myself, because by nature, like I'm just a really outgoing person, but I really tone it down a lot when I'm around other Muslim people, because I feel like if I were to go out in the community and just be like super friendly and outgoing, it would like make people think like, oh, she has no haya and stuff.
Yeah. I really actually totally agree with what you're saying. Like I resonate with that a lot. Like why is she acting so social, Yeah, that's really interesting that I'm not the only one that feels that way. If you feel that way, I think a lot of other sisters might also feel that way. And it's kind of sad because it's, we're getting that from Muslims, our Muslim community. And, I always feel like we have to overperform also because like people think, oh, like, did you convert because of a guy or something like that? Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah, precisely.
Yeah. It's so annoying. Anybody have anything else to add?
Hi. My name is Katie. So I totally agree with what Kira had to say. I relate to almost everything she just stated. But at the same time, I try not to shield myself from having fun with non-Muslim people and then Muslim people. And it's kind of weird how we act differently around different people. So we kind of adapt ourselves to be a version that they're more comfortable with. Like, we're like chameleons. To the point where we shed our skin or change our forms into like, let's be more polite because this is a way of a Muslimah. Or if we're with our non-Muslim friends, they're used to seeing us how we were before we converted, which is like more outgoing, we're more outspoken, we don't really care about what anyone has to think of us. And so I feel like I try not to be that way. At least I'm trying, because I don't want to necessarily change or morph myself to become this person that certain people are comfortable with. If they don't want to hang out with me because I'm Muslim, then just say so and we can be going along in our merry ways. Like, we don't have to we don't have to just change for like the people around us, especially if it's like our family as well. All we have to do is respect one another and just be ourselves, to be honest.
Assalamu alaikum.
Walaikum salam.
Yeah, I feel that definitely had to be more aware of some things. For instance, joking beforehand. I guess I still do it now, to be honest. I'll make some jokes that might not be considered appropriate, but they're not thought about. It literally just comes out my mouth before I realise what I've said. I feel like at one point I think I was too aware of and was kind of a bit scared to speak. But now if it happens, I just say astaghfirullah and tell people to ignore me and then just carry on. But I do feel we do have generally, I think most of us will have two sides. So we'll have our Muslim side, as the sister said, and then and I just think it's a shame that we have to do that.
Yeah.
And also I think it tells us that, especially for the people that knew us before we became Muslim, it's made me aware of who actually knew me before I became Muslim. Because I have a couple of friends, literally two, they don't see really any major difference. They weren't surprised when I became Muslim. It was like, yeah, I'm not surprised. It makes sense. Where practically everyone else think just because I now cover and visually Muslim, they just expect me to be different, even though I don't believe I'm acting differently. I think they just see everything differently because of what I'm wearing. They just don't see me for me anymore. Which then that causes a bit of conflict because I'm like, I'm just being me. And they're like, no. But, often with my family, I have to tell them I'm still the same person, thinking that everything I say is literally because I'm Muslim. Like, if I like something, I like something. If I don't, I don't. Like, the religion doesn't control your personal taste. You're still, you're still a person.
Right. You're a human being.
Yeah, you're still a person. I think some people think you're just a walking, living version of the Quran, and it's like, no. Our behavior obviously is with the Quran in mind, but like activities and things that we like, things how we are, whether we talk a lot, don't talk a lot, it's still our normal personality, our normal selves.
Yeah, assalamu alaikum, everyone.
Walaikum salam.
Wow, I'm just listening to these comments, and it's heartbreaking because, like, Islam is meant to improve us. It's meant to sort of, get rid of all of the chaff so that only the good stuff is left. Do you know what I mean? It's not meant to be a burden on our souls. And I went through this when I first converted, and I think it was because of the company I kept. And I mean, I'm not going to get into labels and all of that stuff, but there are certain Muslims who follow certain ways of thinking, and it's very female specific as well. You never hear the brothers being told they don't have enough haya. It's always the sisters being told we don't have enough haya, and it's always about things like, your hijab isn't good enough, your voice is awra, don't speak out in public. Oh my God, you told a joke, astaghfirullah.
Yeah.
Where is this even coming from? Do you know what I mean?
Right.
And it really, but because I was in that company, and like you said, you sort of feel like you have to overperform because people are expecting, they're watching you, and they're like, is she really Muslim, or is she just going to fall back off the wagon in a few weeks' time? And I went through that, and I really quite, alhamdulillah, quickly realized that, like, the Muslims that I had met at the start of my journey, journey were not the same people as who I was keeping company with after I took Shahada, because I was in a different country. I just sort of realized that, well, hang on, how come those people who I met when I was abroad were not like this? And these people are like this. And that made me do a bit of research and find out about these different ways of thinking, different approaches. And so I thought to myself, I need to learn my religion. I need to learn what Islam actually teaches and what it actually says, not what these cultures or different ways of thinking are imposing on people.
Right.
And I think too, I'm going to be honest, I think age has a lot to do with it as well. I got a lot more criticism for just me being who I am when I was in my 20s and 30s than I do now. It's one of the advantages of being an auntie. You can get away with a lot more. So I think that, there's a lot to be said for that as well, that when women are younger and maybe if they're before they get married or if they're newly married or whatever, they're sort of seen as oh, you have to behave a certain way because otherwise you're fitna. And after a certain age, it's yeah, you're not fitna anymore. You can do what you like.
SubhanAllah.
But SubhanAllah, the thing is, I think, one thing that I hate, and I've always hated this since I was a child, is double standards, two-facedness, hypocrisy.
Yes.
So the whole idea that I had to behave one way with one set of people and another way with another set of people just rubbed me the wrong way. Even though I knew that I had to do it, we all do it. We all do it in all situations, right? You don't speak to your boss the same way you speak to your friend that you're meeting for coffee. We all adapt to social situations. But the fact that I was expected to do it because of my religion really, really bugged me. And I think sort of when my kids were still young, I just sort of stopped doing it because I thought, that's not me. And if people don't like my slightly off-color jokes, well, I could show them, evidence of the Prophet ﷺ joking, If they're going to tell me that my voice is aura, I'm going to ask them, where's your evidence that my voice is aura?
Right.
I'm not acting flirtatious. I'm not speaking softly. I'm not, I'm speaking matter-of-factly. Where is the aura in that? So, I alhamdulillah, I sat down and I learned enough to be able to argue back with people. But I think too, by that time I had been Muslim for a decade or so. So it was people knew I wasn't going to fall off the wagon, basically. I do think though, one thing that I did stop doing, visiting my family, meaning my parents, I think the only thing that changed was that I stopped swearing. Seriously, I think that was the only thing I changed. And I think that because obviously, it's not a good habit anyway. But, I think that even when I would visit my family, and my mum swears every now and again, and I don't reprimand her or anything when she does it, but she, when I stopped doing it. And I think that was the only thing that they really noticed.
Mm-hmm.
So
it's good though that you realized that this is who I am, and I'm not going to change myself for the Muslim community. I don't have to.
Exactly.
It is a journey to get to that point where you're just well, this is me, too bad. And you know what? I've lost actually a lot of friends because of that, I think. I'm just, I'm naturally also really direct and straightforward. If I value our friendship, I'll be very straightforward and direct with you. And not a lot of people can sort of take that, I think.
No,
they'll just think
a lot of people that are sensitive.
Yeah. And, obviously I'm not that full on blatant. I could be, but I'm not. Even if I do sort of watch what I say, some people still find it so they're just so oversensitive, and I mean, I'm not here to babysit people's emotions. I think I realize that as my
You're not here to
identity.
please people, though.
Exactly.
You're here to please Allah, and if people take that the wrong way, if we know that Allah is happy with our actions and our words,
then so be
it. Exactly. And I mean, if we've genuinely offended somebody, we apologize.
Right.
We shouldn't be above that either. But if we can confidently say, I've done nothing wrong, Allah is happy with me, that should be all that matters.
Exactly. And I think also, for example, there are some sisters who may come to us for advice or, just want to talk. And then I'm not going to sugarcoat. Just because you're my friend, I'm going to tell you how it is, and I think a lot of people take that the wrong way. And I've realized, like, especially when it comes to Islam, you know, like I shouldn't have to sugarcoat just to, you know, make your ego feel better. And I feel like that was like sort of like before, you know, I felt like when I first became Muslim, I really had to like watch that. Actually, no, just kidding. I was really harsh back then. But like along the way, I realized like, okay, maybe I should sort of sugarcoat because people are finding my harshness like a bit too harsh. So now, for example, like when I just let sisters know, like politely, respectfully, like how it is, some of them just take it too personal. And, you know, I can't fix that. Like it's take it or leave it, you know?
I mean, we all have to find a healthy way to morph our two identities of like, it's not really like morphing the two, but like just take it in or leave it as is. Like,
right.
We can't just always please everyone around us. It's so exhausting to watch out like, oh, this might hurt you, or we have to stroke your ego for you to be kind to us. No, if you like us for us, then stay. If you don't like us for us, then leave. You don't have to be around us.
One thing I feel like I also learned is you don't have to be friends with everybody.
Yes.
Like that was my thing. I thought that like I had to be friends with everybody. You know what I mean? But as we get older, it's so much harder to make friends, I feel like, because like now you're sort of comfortable in your own skin and you have your boundaries, you know, but some people are just still on that journey and they don't like that, like
boundaries.
Yeah, they don't like boundaries. They don't respect other people's boundaries. Do you know what I mean? So,
yes.
SubhanAllah.
I've seen a lot of new sisters struggle with that a lot. And I think it's because they're trying to find their place in a new community and prove themselves.
Yes,
you know, this idea of having to prove ourselves as real, true Muslims. And, you know, it kind of, I have to say, it kind of angers me a little bit when I hear this kind of thing, because I think, you know, subhanAllah, people get so excited when somebody takes Shahada.
Mm-hmm.
And then after that, all it is criticism.
Yes.
All it is judgment.
Yes.
That's all these poor people are getting. And, you know, and that sort of really bugs me, because that points to a real disease in the hearts of our community as a whole, in the sense that, you know, why are we so excited about somebody taking Shahada, but we're not there for them when they're struggling, when they're adapting? Why are we sitting there nitpicking about, you know, whether they're wearing nail polish or whether they've had their eyebrows plucked or how they're praying or, you know, all of these really details that, you know, I'm not going to say they're not important, but they're, you know, they're not the be all end all. If you get what I'm saying. They're not the priorities of learning and so on, you know, but all we do is judge, you know, oh, sister, you've got a little bit of hair showing. Sister, I can see your ears through your white hijab. Sister, this, sister, And I think,
it's
you know,
so
wow, 6 months ago, you were all takbiring all over the place because she took her Shahada, and now all you do is criticize her. How is she expected to feel like that?
Yeah,
exactly.
We all have to remember we're on different journeys within like our Islam. So yeah, just be kind to everyone and stop comparing yourself to different people. I mean, the only person that you should compare yourself to is who you were yesterday, rather than like another person. We're all raised within different environments, and those factors impact how we are as people as well. So
I think that's actually a really good point. We all grew up in different cultures, different countries. You know, like Queenie, you said, it's going to impact us. It's not like we can change all of that like overnight, like what we're used to. I know it sort of shows like there's something wrong with that person who's judging, like, you know, like Amanda said, diseases of the heart, you know, like fix yourself before you try to fix others. And why are you trying to fix others anyways? You know what I mean? Are you a psychologist?
I think something that revert converts need to remember, and we're not told this. I mean, unless you have a circle of maybe more mature Muslims that have probably travelled more, or a lot of reverts around you, there is nothing wrong with where we came from.
Mm-hmm.
So just as, our cultures, and that doesn't change overnight, who said it has to change? If you're from a culture that's quite direct, then so what? There's nothing haram about being direct. We're told to be direct, to be honest. So there's no blurred lines and everyone knows exactly what it's meant. And I think we're so under the microscope that I don't know if you've ever had this experience when you walk into a masjid for the first time and it's like the whole place is just watching you.
Yeah, like
just watching you.
Oh,
watching
yes.
you
All eyes on you.
and you're just there like, am I walking? But I'm like, it's too much. It's so much pressure. And the worst thing about it is those people don't even come and speak to you. They don't try and come and help you, but they're sat there watching you, and you know they're watching everything you do. It's like, am I sitting properly? Are my legs too far apart? Is this? It's too much. It's leave me alone. I'm allowed to sit down.
Seriously.
But and especially if you're on a sister's side, then I think people, they just need to relax and stop acting like the religion is so restrictive, because we can joke and we can have an opinion and we can be direct, or if you want to be a person that kind of sprinkles dust on everything you say, that's your choice. We can do whatever we want as long as it's not haram, and it's as simple as that. But like Amanda said, that for me has come with age. At the beginning I think I was a bit harsh, and then I relaxed, I think, too much. Now I don't care. If I'm being honest and truthful and I know that I haven't done anything wrong, then however you take it is however the person takes it. And I'm not going to try and, not anymore anyway, I'm not going to try and be this version of whatever masjid, because if you go to, I don't know, a Somali masjid, they have a different set of cultural norms, and then if you go to a Pakistani one, they have a different set of I haven't got time to, assimilate to everyone's way of life, to be honest. I think they have to understand that becoming Muslim doesn't mean we turn into a whole new person, and it doesn't mean that what we were doing, I don't know, at 11:59 before we took the Shahada was all haram. A second later, I think having this mind that everything we do before we become Muslim was haram, and it just shows you how ignorant people are, and it also shows you, like I said, a sickness in the heart, that they just assume that everyone non-Muslim is doing something wrong.
Yeah,
I'm sure we've all been asked questions. We've all probably been asked some questions, and you look at the person as if to say, what on earth are you talking about? Like, why would you ask me that? There's some things people ask, like, well, what is it like when you do this? I'm like, I don't know. Go ask someone that did it. I didn't do it. And they look shocked. Like, just because I wasn't Muslim doesn't mean I was doing, God knows what. I still had morals, and it's crazy. Yeah. It's crazy. And I think until you get comfortable in your faith, you do struggle with how to be, and you do struggle with knowing that this circle of sisters isn't for you, and this masjid isn't for you, and it's a minefield, and no one tells us this beforehand. Even other reverts don't tell you. It's all hidden, and I would have appreciated someone telling me some things beforehand. And it's something I'm conscious of now. If I do meet someone that's newly Muslim, I do give them a reality. I do give them some, like, you need to be careful of this because this is going to happen. Don't take it to heart. It's just something that we just have to deal with, unfortunately.
I wanted to say on this, what you mentioned something really important that I think a lot of us have dealt with, is that a lot of people who are born Muslims really conflate their culture with Islam. So we're expected to not only learn Islam, but also all of their cultural rules and traditions and assimilate to that. And like you mentioned, we're supposed to adapt to every single masajid that there is. So like, if we were to go to a Somali masjid or a Pakistani one, like, we're supposed to adapt to each and every one in addition to being Muslim. But like, nobody tells us that this is an expectation of us beforehand. And also too, that we're expected to just throw out everything that was a part of our own cultural upbringing. Like, I think that's just like something that's a huge curveball for a lot of reverts that nobody tells us before we become Muslim, because we think like being Muslim is just about the religion. But when we actually do like go into Muslim spaces, we're we like have to incorporate all of this different cultural conditioning, and like so many of these nitpicking type rules, like some of it is based in Sahih Ahadith, but like a lot of it is like really specific cultural interpretations of a hadith. Unless you actually have like a good solid foundation in like fiqh, or if you've studied the religion like really in depth, like there is no way for you to know as like a brand new revert that like, oh, this is somebody following one specific scholar's opinion that is very different from the vast majority of other scholars and is way more strict, you know? Like, I don't know, I just think that's something super important that like a lot of us aren't really expecting. And it also really kind of influences how we portray ourselves to the world, you know? Like we have to be like, I don't know, I feel like we get like really reserved because we don't really know what part of us will be accepted. So
Yeah.
just to be safe, like we really suppress a lot of ourselves. What do you guys think?
I definitely think that I have to suppress a lot of myself up until now. I feel like, and I feel for me, that's why one reason why social media is so toxic is because like you see all of these things going on online, but you can't speak out with certain things because you're going to be like, while yes, I don't care what others think, but like, I just don't want to deal with like confrontations when like, you know what I mean? Like, yeah, the backlash, like when they are actually in the wrong, but like, even if you just sort of be like, hey, like what you're saying, like, do you have proof for that? Like, is that true? Even if you say something like that, they'll be like, yeah, blah, blah, blah. They'll go off and saying like they know everything, subhanAllah, because everybody is a freaking expert now on social media with everything, you know? So I feel like in some ways I have to suppress myself so much.
I think I had to suppress myself. I think we all do. And I think this is what I think it's been referred to as like a burnout. I keep seeing this term used quite a lot. But to be honest, well over 10 years ago, there was a email, quite a lengthy email that was going around, and it was tailored to a particular school of thought. I won't say which one it is, but it was called the something burnout. And it just kind of went through all the stages that new Muslims go through. And then we end up at a point where we don't know who we are, what we're doing, where we're going. I think suppressing who we are, I think that leads to that. Because, you know, like Khadija was saying, you know, people think they know it all for some reason. And, you know, if we look back through Islamic history, no one knew it all. People were always developing. So I don't know why everyone now thinks, you know, 1400 years later, with the way that we live, we're nowhere near, you know, as our predecessors were. We don't know anything. You know, people are preaching to you about one thing, and then, you know, not to be horrible, but then it's a bit like, you know, do you even pray? Never mind what material someone's wearing or whether it's got a colour or a jewel on it. And, you know, certain things, it's like, do you actually know how to pray? Do you even pray? There are things that are way more important, what we're wearing. I'm not saying that dress isn't important, but sometimes we just focus on superficial things like clothing, and which is important, but it's not something you should be attacking a stranger to. Like, I would never just see a sister in the street and be like, you're not covered. That's a conversation I have with someone that I know. It's just not to walk around and just, you know, just drop these things and walk off. Because some people don't even understand that there is a requirement to not necessarily dress a certain way, but there are rules about what to wear. I know I didn't. I remember when I first became Muslim, no one covered. I don't think I saw one person covering in my city. Okay, people dressed like everyone else, or they dressed in Asian clothing. So I assumed that's what you had to wear. It wasn't until I started reading I realized, oh, okay, where I live, not many people are paying attention to this. So when I used to go out of town, so I used to go out to the city to learn things and be around people more like my wavelength, they looked at me, I got judged quite harshly because I wasn't covering. And some people just like, you got to cover, why aren't you covering? And there was a couple of sisters that kind of took me to the side and politely, you know, said, oh, maybe you want to read this and we should dress like this. They did it nicely. They weren't just, she's not covered, don't go near her. And I actually had people say that.
What?
Like they're not going to, they're not going to be friends with me because I don't cover. And I was like, okay.
Wow.
It's like,
Oh my
I was
god.
like, I'm not at school, whatever.
It's like Mean Girls.
It's crazy. Yeah, it's crazy. And I just think that the fact that, and these, to be honest, these were actually raised Muslims, these are reverts. So it just shows you the influence, like we're saying about from different schools of thoughts, how we need to, take it literally, but also remember, use some common sense, because no one's going to change overnight, and we're not supposed to change overnight. That isn't written anywhere. Nowhere is it written, you've got, 2 months to do this and 3 weeks to do this, and you got it. It's not written anywhere. We just need to progress, and as long as we're progressing, that's what people should focus on. And if they're that bothered, then they can help rather than sat there at the side making their comments. This is not a talent show where you're just there putting up scorecard. If you want to help. Other than that, keep quiet. That's kind of
right.
Yeah.
I think people just need to learn to, leave us alone a bit, because in one breath they're like, yeah, they're new Muslims. And then in the next breath, like we've said, they're judging you. And, we don't judge a baby when it starts to walk on how it walks. We don't do that. It's a baby. It walks like this. It will get to this stage at some point. And we need to use that logic and let them breathe and not make them feel like you can't be you. So I think we all feel that we can't be us. Maybe go from being like really harsh to maybe being too relaxed, and we're just going back and forth, and we may take on this culture too much for a couple of years and then go the other way for a couple of years, and then the same way that we have to accept the cultures of raised Muslims, why do they not just accept ours? Yeah. It's a two-way street. Why do we have to change all the time?
I think that's a really good point.
But they're not expected to change, but we're expected to change.
I think what you were saying about the culture, like why is our culture deemed Islamically less valid than South Asian culture, Malaysian culture, Somali culture, Arab culture? Because all of those are cultures. I mean, if you look at what is Arabian culture, what is the culture of the Arabian Peninsula? Pre-Islam, what was it? It was really bad.
Don't get me started on that.
It was really, really, like you want to talk about Jahiliyyah. That was the culture. Subhanallah. And nobody,
don't even get me started.
Exactly. But there were values in that culture that stayed after Islam, right? So why is the same not applicable to our own culture, whatever that culture happens to be, whether it's Canadian, whether it's Chinese, whether it's British, whether it's, wherever we happen to come from. And I think people forget this. And I think it's mainly just a matter of how long have our people or people like us been Muslim? You've got the South Asian culture where, yes, they are more recently Muslim than, say, Arabs, but because it's been centuries, if not a millennia, then, it's seen as it's been Islamicized sufficiently, right? Give us the same amount of time, Britain will be just, well, I'm not going to say, I'm going to get accused of creeping Sharia here, but, the Muslims are taking over. I don't mean that, but if more and more British people convert, insha'Allah, and have kids, and their kids are born here and so on, that there's going to be an Islamified British culture. That's just unavoidable. But I think too, like what a lot of sisters are describing, and what Almas was just describing about how, in one city nobody's covering, and then in another city everybody's covering, and then she's told she has to cover, and all of these things. And we do get this a lot. And I think it was Kira mentioned about, whether there's evidence for certain things in hadith and so on. What a lot of people in our communities fail to remember is that Islam was revealed over a period of 23 years. And 13 of those years, the focus was what? Tawheed. All of the rules, including hijab, came after Hijrah, after 13 years. Fasting came after Hijrah. The only thing that was before Hijrah was praying. Tawheed, praying, and the fact that we're going to be resurrected. And so for people to say to new Muslims who haven't even figured out how to pray yet, why aren't you wearing hijab properly? Why aren't you doing this properly? Have you fasted the white days? Have you done this? Have you done that? It's unfair. I mean, the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam didn't have all of it put on him overnight. So why should we? I mean, if the best of mankind was given it over 23 years, and I'm not saying to take 23 years, but but it is like somebody else said, it's a journey, and we're all on this journey at our own pace. And as long as we are striving and improving, who on earth has the right to judge that? And it just really bothers me that this idea that we have to be perfect the second we've taken our shahada. And to be honest, I felt that pressure before I even took my shahada, and it delayed me taking my shahada because I thought I had to be the perfect Muslim and hit the ground running as soon as I said the words.
Right.
So, yeah, subhanAllah.
And you know the thing, like, reflecting on what you said, I feel like the community's like judgment and criticism like really can contribute to like a convert or even some like born Muslims like doing like hidden shirk, because like they'll care too much about like what other people think and forget about like, okay, it's all I should be caring about is pleasing Allah. Because a lot of people like they'll do things in front of you to make themselves look like, oh, you know, if I don't show them that I'm doing this, then like they're gonna criticize me and judge me, you know. But like at the end of the day, you should be caring more about what Allah thinks. And I'm saying this because like I mentioned, I had a really like harsh phase, and you know, but it was all obviously in ignorance. And alhamdulillah, like, you know, the more you learn, insha'Allah, with like an open heart, you know, the more you grow to be better. And so at the beginning, I remember like when there was like a few sisters when I was living in the US that would come to me for, you know, after they converted, like may Allah forgive me, but I was so harsh with them. And I was like, you need to like leave this and do this right away, like blah blah blah, like, you know. But it was inshallah coming from a good place, but obviously I didn't know that it was more harm than good. She would always in front of me say that you know, she wanted to do this, and she would dress a certain way in front of me. But like with my other friend would say like she does this and this like when she's with me, like, you know what I mean? I feel that's really dangerous, because like you don't want to be that person that makes like basically they're fearing you more than they're fearing Allah. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And then that can lead to riya. That can lead to like an insincerity in your worship.
Yes. And we see a lot of that, you know, on social media these days too.
And I think that this is something a lot of people, you know, when we want to give advice, we can do it in a way that doesn't shame people.
Shaming,
you know,
that's the thing.
You know,
shaming.
But publicly embarrassing people. And I think, Khadija, what you said about social media, like, a'udhu billah from social media. I'm on it. I have to be on it for work and all of that. But I would rather it go the way of the dodo sometimes because of how toxic it can be, and how like you can't do anything on social media without somebody jumping down your throat.
That's another topic of discussion. But yeah, basically
write it down and schedule it in.
You just can't be yourself. You know what I mean? Actually, that would be a good topic, like your like identity and social media.
Definitely.
Yeah, please
really,
do
really good.
something about that, because I can totally relate to that. Like, I feel like with my own personal social media, like I completely censor myself just because I'm like,
yes, that's the word,
coming
censor.
at my throat.
All right, so join us next week as we continue on with our discussion, and make sure to follow us on Instagram at thecameliasbloom.podcast, and join our Patreon community where you will get special access and support to meet your needs as a convert new Muslimah, insha'Allah.